Have you ever thought that sometimes the things happening in your family are not just coincidences, but hidden messages meant for you? Ibn Arabi said, Allah does not always speak through words. Sometimes He speaks through signs. Let me ask you this. If you start seeing these 5 signs within your family, maybe God has already been telling you it's time to turn back. At first that sounds heavy, almost frightening, doesn't it? But in reality, these signs are not meant to scare you. They are gentle warnings, reminders, because God never leaves His servant without guidance. In Sufi thought, family is more than people bound by blood. It is also the circle of souls placed on the same spiritual journey with you. So when something unusual happens in your family, it might not only be a personal matter, it can be a message for your inner life. Ibn Arabi taught that sometimes a person cannot see the signals in their own path, but God speaks to them through what happens in their family. That is why in this video I will share with you 5 great signs that can appear within a family. And pay attention, because at the end I will reveal the most hidden sign Ibn Arabi described, one that makes everyone who hears it look at their life in a completely new way. So let's begin. Maybe one of these signs has already shown itself in your family. The first sign is sudden breaks and strange distance between loved ones. You might think this little issue should never cause such a big fight, and yet it does. There is tension in the house, as if an unseen hand is pulling hearts away from each other. According to Ibn Arabi, these breaks are not only human disagreements. They may be divine signs, because God often reaches the heart of a servant by using those closest to them. Think of it. A family that lived in harmony for years suddenly explodes over a single word. You sit there asking yourself, why did this happen? Sufism gives a clear answer. God uses those you love as mirrors. When you cannot see the cracks inside yourself, you are forced to notice them when they appear in your family. Family separations are often a call toward truth. Sometimes God allows conflict in the home just to say, you are drifting away. For the servant, this is a hard test, but also a clear warning. The heart awakens most when it is tried through those it loves the most. When a person recognizes this sign, they begin to feel something deeper than the quarrel itself. A strange echo within, a silence filled with meaning. That echo is not empty. It carries a message. Ibn Arabi would say it is like the quiet footsteps of the angel of death, because before death draws near, life begins to unravel at its center inside the family. That unraveling is often the very first signal that one is being prepared for truth. And remember this, for Ibn Arabi, family is not only people who share blood in this world. It is also a mirror of the soul. Every sign you see in your family is in fact a reflection of your own heart. So these sudden cracks, which seem to appear without cause, may be moments when God is whispering, turn back. Now the second sign is sudden illness or unexpected weakness within the family. Imagine this. Everyone seems well. Life flows normally, and then one day someone falls sick without warning. Doctors cannot fully explain it. Treatments drag on. The house fills with constant worry. Most people see such events only as medical issues. But in Sufi thought, and especially through Arabi's eyes, these illnesses carry a much deeper meaning. He said, illness is God's reminder to the servant. As the body weakens, the soul begins to awaken to truth. So when sickness appears suddenly in the family, it is not only physical, it is also spiritual. Sometimes God gives such trials just to remind His servant of death and impermanence. This sign is really saying time is drawing near. Prepare your heart. In such moments, everyone in the household feels a shift. Sitting by the bedside of the sick, time itself seems to stop. Days look the same, but deep inside something begins to change. Because illness is never only the weakness of a body, it is also the stirring of the unseen. Illness in a family is not only about the body. It is a message sent to the soul of the household. In those moments, you suddenly realize that nothing in this world lasts forever. And that realization itself is part of God's call. According to Sufism, illness teaches two great lessons: patience and surrender. But even more, it shows the face of mortality in the clearest way. When one person in the family falls sick, everyone begins to reflect on their own death. Ibn Arabi saw this as a kind of mercy, because without that awareness, a person never truly turns toward truth. Most important of all, such a sign does not only expose physical weakness, it reveals the weakness of the soul. Pride, ego, and ambition lose their meaning because in the face of sickness, human helplessness is laid bare. And in that helplessness, the servant is closest to God, for in that moment one surrenders completely to the Creator. Ibn Arabi explained that sudden illnesses in families are like the silent footsteps of the angel of death. Azrael does not only come on the final day to take a soul, he touches the heart long before whispering reminders of mortality. Illness is one of those reminders. The third sign is when material things begin to lose their charm within the family. Once money, possessions, work, or success were at the center of everything, but suddenly none of it seems to satisfy anymore. Income rises, yet the blessing fades. New things are bought, yet happiness does not come. Quietly, the same question begins to echo in everyone's heart. So much struggle, so much effort. Why do we still feel empty? For Ibn Arabi, this is not just ordinary dissatisfaction. It is a very deep sign. Sometimes God prevents his servant from clinging too tightly to the world by stripping away its sweetness. Wealth may remain, but without blessing. Money may be present, but without peace. This is the heart's divine warning. Turn back, for this world cannot fill you. In Sufi teaching, this is called detachment from the world. Without even realizing, a person begins to lose the taste for worldly things. Ibani put it simply, the world is a shadow. Whoever tries to grasp the shadow ends up with nothing. Illness inside a family is not just about the body. It is like a message sent to the soul of the household. In that moment, people realize nothing in this world lasts, and that realization itself becomes part of God's call. Sufi wisdom teaches that sickness brings two lessons: patience and surrender. But beyond that, it reveals the reality of mortality in the clearest way. When one family member falls ill, everyone around them suddenly begins to think of their own end. Ibn Arabi considered this awareness a mercy, because without it, a person rarely turns toward truth. Most importantly, this sign does not only expose physical weakness, it uncovers spiritual weakness too. Ego, pride, and ambition suddenly lose their power because illness strips away illusions and shows how helpless we truly are. And in that helplessness, the servant is closest to God because that is the moment one surrenders completely. Ibn Arabi explained that sudden illnesses in a family are like the silent steps of Azrael. The angel of death does not come only once to take the soul. He touches the heart long before reminding it of what is temporary. Illness is one of those reminders. The third sign is when material life begins to lose its shine. Once wealth, possessions, work, and success seem to matter above everything else. But then you notice things no longer bring the same taste. Earnings grow, but blessing disappears. New things are bought, but joy does not come. Quietly, a question spreads in the family. All this effort, all this struggle, but why are we still empty? Ibn Arabi said this is not ordinary dissatisfaction. It is a deep spiritual sign. Sometimes God removes the sweetness of the world from a servant's hands, so they will not cling too tightly. Wealth may remain, but without blessing. Money may come, but without peace. This state is God's warning to the heart. Return, for this world will never satisfy you. In Sufi terms, this is called becoming weary of the world. A person begins to lose the taste for worldly things without even realizing. Ibn Arabi described it beautifully. The world is a shadow. Whoever tries to grasp the shadow ends up with nothing. That shadow-like feeling in the family is actually a sign of preparation for truth. God often makes the taste of worldly things bitter. So the servant will turn toward what is eternal. A house may keep filling with new things, but joy never comes. Goals that were chased for years may finally be reached, but they feel empty in the end. This emptiness is like the hidden breath of Azrael. As death comes closer, the world stops being a veil and instead becomes a mirror. A person no longer seeks only what is here. They begin searching for what lies beyond. That is why the sense of lost blessing in a family is such an important sign. It is God's way of saying, return. Your place is not here. For in reality, the heart is not satisfied by the world, but only by the Creator. The fourth sign is the appearance of spiritual loneliness and silence within the family. Picture a home where people sit together, talk, even laugh, yet their hearts never touch. Deep down, each one feels alone. It is as if an invisible curtain has fallen between them. Conversations stay on the surface. No true bond is made. Sometimes this silence feels like unease, sometimes like a strange emptiness. Ibn Arabi taught that this is not ordinary lack of communication. It is God speaking through silence. If you feel lonely while surrounded by loved ones, it means your heart is opening to another call, not from the world, but from the one who created it. Think of a family gathered at the table. Everyone is there, yet no one really looks at each other. Phones, worries, and thoughts keep them apart. On the surface, it seems like modern life, but it can also be a divine sign. Ibn Arabi said, "The one who feels alone in a crowd is actually drawing nearer to hearing God's voice." This loneliness can frighten you. You may ask, why do I feel this way? Why does no one understand me? But these very questions are bridges leading you closer to truth. For in silence you begin to hear the deeper voice within, and that voice is God's whisper saying, return. That moment when hearts grow distant and silence spreads through the family is also a reminder of Azrael's approaching steps. For death is not only the breaking of the body, it is also the unraveling of relationships. When that unraveling begins, the soul quietly prepares for its own path. Ibn Arabi taught that this loneliness is not a punishment but an invitation. Only in solitude can a servant hear the truth knocking at the door of the heart. So when deep silence settles over a family, it may be one of those moments when God is saying, return. Your place is not here. The fifth and deepest sign is the feeling of surrender that arises in the heart. After all the breaks, illnesses, loss of blessing, and silence, there comes a day when the heart no longer resists. It simply says enough. But this enough is not despair. It is the beginning of turning toward God. Ibn Arabi said, "The heart that surrenders has already stepped into God's presence." When such an atmosphere of surrender is felt in the family, it is the clearest sign of all. There is no more resistance, only acceptance. And when the heart is filled with acceptance, even the fear of death changes shape. What once seemed terrifying now begins to feel like reunion. When you notice this state in your family, know that God is telling you, return now. For surrender is the soul's greatest preparation. Neither wealth nor the world nor people can carry the weight of the heart. At that stage, the heart turns to one thing alone, the Creator. And here's the secret we promised from the beginning. According to Ibn Arabi, the most hidden sign God gives a servant is the whisper that the heart is finally ready for truth. No matter what happens outside, there is a voice within that says, return now. That voice may come during loneliness, in sickness, or through tears. However it arrives, once it is heard, the journey has begun. In Ibn Arabi's eyes, death is not an ending, but the truest birth. And when a person sees these signs, they should not be afraid. God does not frighten his servant. He only reminds the coming of Azrael is not a loss, but a meeting. It is in fact the greatest mercy because these signs are preparing you for your true home. And now we have reached the end of this journey. If you have noticed these signs within your own family, Try to look at life with new eyes. Maybe God has already been telling you return, but this path does not end here. If you wish to explore the deeper truths behind these signs, take a step further and watch the other videos now on your screen. Each one will bring you a little closer. Each one will add another layer of awareness. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.